Hey everyone. So I was in a discussion the other day with a person who asked the question, what is the difference between a heretic and someone who's in error? And so I want to clear that up. I think that's an important question. Uh, and if you're not a Christian, you probably don't care about the answer. But if you are a Christian, then it's important to understand the distinction. So there is a distinction between someone who's simply in error and someone who is a heretic. So there are two things really that define uh, heresy that should be understood. If these two criteria are fulfilled, then someone is advocating for heresy and not just they're not just in error. Number one is whether or not the person is disputing a core belief of the Christian faith. So, if you think of the Christian faith as a set of concentric circles, right? Three concentric circles. In the very middle, you have those things that are necessary to the Christian faith, that everyone has to believe. If you don't believe these things, then you are not a Christian. And then in the second circle are things that may affect your understanding or your particular tradition, but it doesn't affect whether or not you're a Christian. You just might be um, wrong on a particular issue there, and it doesn't make you not a Christian. It just means that you're wrong. And then the third concentric circle is filled with things that really don't matter very much, whether or not you hold to a particular thing. So, uh, some of the I'm going to use an absurd example here just to get my point across. The medieval debate about how many angels could dance on the head of a pin would fall into this third category. It really doesn't matter what color was the Virgin Mary's hair. It's not important. It was something that people debated. No one's a heretic over stuff like that. Uh, so at the center of that circle, remember, are the core things, and these would be things like the Trinity, uh, the nature of Christ as truly God and truly human, the personhood of the Holy Spirit. Those are things that are at the core of the Christian faith, and if you deny one of those things, and the second criteria is that I'm about to tell you is fulfilled, then you're advocating for heresy. So the heresy has to do with one of those things at the very core, and it has to be a persistent error. So let me give an example. Um, there are a lot of people, and myself included, who, when they come to faith, they realize that we need God's grace um, for salvation, but they think, like the old adage, if you take the first step towards God, God will take the rest of the steps towards you. God will come the rest of the way to you. I believed that when I first became a Christian. I thought, I was making a decision for Christ, and God was just going to come the rest of the way. I didn't understand this concept of prevenient grace, this grace that goes before, this grace that prepares the heart to receive Christ. I didn't have a concept of that. All I knew is that I wanted Jesus. I was in error whenever I did that. But because I learned how God's grace was necessary for me to take that first step, and I repented of that error, and I placed my trust in His grace, and came to a proper understanding. I wasn't persistent in heresy. Technically, if I had persisted in that, I would have been guilty of spreading a heresy called semi-Pelagianism. We did a video on whether Armenian theology was semi-Pelagian or not too long ago. But I want us to understand that heresy has to do with a core doctrine of the Christian faith and persistence in that doctrine. If someone has a mistaken view of say the Trinity, and they're confronted about it, they amend their ways and say, hey, you know what, the biblical view is this, and I was wrong. That person isn't advocating heresy. They were just wrong. They were mistaken. Um, Error is anything that falls outside of those things. So someone can be in error even about a core doctrine of the faith. But they don't, if they don't persist in it, then they're not advocating for heresy. However, someone who is really a Christian will want to find the errors in their theology and come to a better understanding of God, and come to know God better. So we can be confident that someone who is in error isn't going to stay in error forever. Not that we'll ever become perfect, but that someone who is in error about the core things. I should have said the core things, but someone who's in error about those core things of the Christian faith won't remain in error about those. Error can be something like this. Well, there's a lot of talk about the egalitarian complementarian debate, and I've seen people even throw out the word heretic in regards to this debate. And I'm here to say that that's not a core issue of the Christian faith, whether someone's egalitarian or complementarian. People may feel strongly about their position, but because it's not a core doctrine of the faith, then either complementarians are wrong or egalitarians are wrong. But neither one is a heretic, because again, it doesn't have to do with Christ's saving work. It doesn't have to do with these core doctrines of the Christian faith. We can take other issues, going even further out in the concentric circles. Look at the tertiary issues. A tertiary issue today would be the discussion about what skin color Jesus had. He was probably had the same complexion as any other Jewish person of the day, but believing different than that may make someone in error, but it doesn't mean that they're a heretic for that. And so I want us to understand the difference between heresy, which is the worst offense here, and simply being an error. Heresy has to do with two things. It has to do with core doctrines of the faith and persistence in those, in error in those things. And error means that you're wrong about something somewhere, but you don't persist in it whenever you find out that it's false. So that's the difference. That's what I wanted to share with you, and I'll see you in the next video.